We're joined now by Jonathan Broder. He's an award-winning senior writer for Newsweek. This was really interesting. I was in Beijing in 2017 for the Belt and Road Forum. Joko Widodo was there embracing the Belt and Road Initiative, one of the leaders there, very much excited about it. These infrastructure projects, a key part of what he was trying to do there. Here he is more of a globalist, and then you've got his opponent who's more of a nationalist. In fact, I lifted one of his quotes. He said, he basically said that this nation doesn't produce anything. It only receives other countries' products. Some people likened him to Donald Trump. He was attacking the elites, that sort of thing. What do we read into this election? I mean, you've got one very much in one column, the other in another column, and we see nationalists doing well around the world. What do we read into these results?
It's not only nationalists in Indonesia, it's Islamists.
Yes.
Very interesting thing about the opponent in this election, former General Prabowo, I think his name is. He was kicked out of the army for insubordination. He was the head. He was the general in charge of all of the much feared special forces in the Indonesian army, and he kidnapped at least 9 activists, and for that he was drummed out of the army. Now, what's interesting about him is that he's a Christian, he's a connoisseur of fine wine, and yet he has called for jihad, and he sees as his base this growing movement of Islamists in Indonesia.
It's interesting because Silkina even alluded to this, race and religion very much in this campaign. Talk to me about the healing process. What does Joko Widodo need to do to bring this country back together again? Because even if he ends up with 54% of the vote where he is now, that's a majority, but you still have a lot of people in the other column.
Well, what he, Widodo was always a moderate and ran as a moderate, ruled as a moderate in his first term. And embraced Indonesia's traditional moderate version of Islam. But over the past 5 years, actually even before that, the country has been growing more and more fundamentalist Islam, sort of the Wahhabi Saudi version of Islam. More mosques, more women dressed in hijab, and hundreds of Indonesians actually volunteered to fight against, fight with Islamic State in Iraq and Syria. What Widodo did this time is he's moving a bit to the right, and that's how he's trying to keep the country together. And what he did was his running mate, he chose as his running mate, a 76-year-old cleric, the head of the ulema, which is sort of the Islamic Council. The Islamic Council has issued fatwas against drinking, against Western culture, against dancing. The traditional Indonesian dress is usually, for women, is a sort of a tight top. They outlawed that. What's interesting about Widodo, though, is that this is a guy who likes heavy metal music.
You've got everything in this.
He's got everything. So, and I can assure you that the fatwas also apply to the heavy metal music.
It's interesting. We've talked about the campaign, the candidates, but one of the other things is the voting and the calculating of the ballots. She was mentioning 26 million people, got 800,000 polling stations. I mean, this is enormous. Some of the polling sites didn't even get their ballots. We may not know the results for like a month. I mean, talk to me of just the enormity of cobbling together all these ballots and coming up with a final tabulation.
Actually, it's 193 million people were voting in 800,000 polling stations. Usually, it takes probably to maybe the end of May. They're anticipating May 22nd before they finally have a result. But they have this thing called a quick count, where these 5 different organizations that have been pretty accurate in the past do a sample from different polling stations, and it appears that Widodo is about 10 points ahead. Now, what's interesting is that Prabowo, he's run 4 different times and lost 4 different times. And every time he's lost, he has not accepted the results. He always demands a recount.
So this could go on for a while.
Yes.
Jonathan Broder, always insights that we like so much. It's great to have you back on the broadcast.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.